want to go to Peter Schiff. He's going to be our guest for the next half hour. He's an American businessman, investment broker, author, financial commentator. I'm sure you've seen him. He's a frequent guest on many financial TV shows. He's a former host of the Peter Schiff Show, now an internet podcast called The Wall Street Unspun. And, of course, many people know of his father, who just recently passed away, Irwin Schiff. And I've seen Irwin Schiff, Mr. Schiff, I've seen your father many times at the Libertarian Party conventions, explaining to people what was going on with the income tax system. I really, my sympathies to you, and I really do appreciate what your father did within his life. And, of course, you can also find Mr. Schiff at Europac.com. What do you make of what's going on in the markets? We've seen them open up down a great deal today and dropping even more. Every day seems to be bringing even worse economic news.
Well, this is exactly what I've been saying was going to happen. I've been coming on Alex's Jones now regularly for the last several months, and this is exactly what I said was going to happen. I said that if the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, that the market would tank. That was one of the reasons I thought they wouldn't raise rates, because I thought they could figure this out. But apparently I gave them too much credit. So they raised interest rates, and the markets are tanking. Also, the economic news is horrific. I mean, if you look at the data that came out today, we are clearly in a recession now. The question is, how long have we been in recession? Did it start a few months ago, or is it just starting this month? But we're back in a recession, and Calenti is right. It is going to be a horrible recession. I think it's going to be worse than the Great Recession. So it will be a greater recession, and it's because of everything the Federal Reserve did to mitigate the damage back then. They just postponed the pain to a later date, and unfortunately, this is the later date, and the pain is about to begin. And it's very ironic because you had President Obama just give his ridiculous State of the Union address where he said everything is fantastic, you know, it's the greatest economy ever, and I think he gave those same marching orders to Janet Yellen and her cohorts at the Federal Reserve, because they keep trying to pretend that everything is great too, because they don't want to admit they were wrong to raise rates. Of course, the real mistake was cutting them in the first place, because all they did is inflate a gigantic bubble, and now they've pricked it.
They cut them, and then they left it down for a very long time. And, of course, as we saw with Alan Greenspan rolling up to the 2008 bubble that they created and then burst, I mean, he continued to cut interest rates over a long period of time, and then he continued to raise interest rates until they burst that bubble. But now it appears that it only took one, the very first interest rate, and now it's busting that bubble, isn't it?
That's because it's a much bigger bubble. You know, the bigger the bubble, the smaller the pin. You need to pop it. And so the question is, when is the Fed going to acknowledge the weakness in the economy, and what are they going to blame it on? Because, of course, they have to pretend that some external factor is what caused it, and there's no way anybody could have possibly predicted it, even though it was one of the easiest things to predict. I think this is even easier than the financial crisis, which I also predicted, and which the Fed was oblivious to. Remember, even after the real estate bubble burst, they still didn't recognize the problem. They still didn't even see it was a bubble. So they don't know until all the wheels have fallen off the bus, and right now that's exactly what's happening. They're still in denial, but I think that sometime in the next few months, they're going to have to launch QE4. They're going to have to reduce that rate hike. They're going to go back down to zero. And I think Congress is also going to come out with a huge stimulus bill that's going to include tax cuts for the middle class and massive increases in government spending. Everybody's going to vote for it because everybody's going to be afraid to oppose it. And it's going to send the budget deficit skyrocketing. And it's going to make it more ironic that, you know, President Obama tried to claim credit for reducing the deficit. The deficit in his last year of office could easily be bigger than the $1 trillion deficit in his first year. And of course, the national debt doubled under President Obama. So he is the biggest deficit spender of all time. In fact, he will be a bigger deficit spender than every president that preceded him, from George Washington to George Bush.
Wow. And of course, one of the things that was also, I think, pretty predictable was the fact that they would not choose to audit the Fed, because that is really at the center of all of this. But we're not even allowed to look behind the curtain with all of this. That's, to me, the most amazing thing. And, of course, the thing that they never talk about in the debates, unless you've got Rand Paul there, and, of course, he wasn't there last night. So the Fed wasn't there. They're all talking about how they're going to have different levels, you know, where their brackets are for income taxes, what their percentages are going to be, whether they're going to be flat or progressive or whatever. That's just really rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, isn't it?
Yeah, and for nobody wants to look behind the curtain there at the Fed. It's like, if you're eating at a fast food restaurant, you don't want to go into the kitchen and actually see what they're making. And especially since they're about to have to pull out the stops because they're going to have to do even more crazy stuff this time because the problem is much bigger. See, everybody wants to pretend that the Fed solved our problem. They didn't solve anything. The market would have solved our problems had the Fed allowed it, but the Fed didn't. The Fed prevented the market from working, and we had 7 years of 0% interest rates and 3 rounds of quantitative easing. And as a result, the economy today is far more screwed up than it was, 7 years ago. The only difference is we still have all the low-paying service sector jobs that our college graduates have been able to land during this Obama recovery. But the jobs are going to start to go away quickly, right? The service sector is going to be hemorrhaging jobs. It was a wealth effect and the false perception of a recovery that created these jobs. But now that phony wealth is evaporating and the perception is being replaced by reality, a lot of these jobs are going to be lost. In fact, I think we're maybe a few months away from some huge negative numbers in the non-farm payroll, a big spike up in unemployment. And then even when the Fed launches QE4 and cuts rates to 0, it's not going to turn the tide. I think the unemployment rate is going to be rising for years. I think we're headed back above 10% officially, and who knows where we'll be unofficially with all the people that just leave the labor market. But we've seen the best days as far as the low unemployment rate and the job creation. And of course, everybody is trying to hang their hat on this one data point. They're saying, oh, we can ignore all the bad news because look, the jobs market is strong. No, you have to ignore the jobs market and pay attention to all the other news because the other news is forward-looking. The jobs news is backward-looking. The jobs are going to follow the other data. If corporate profits are collapsing, if retail sales are collapsing, if the stock market is in a bear market, all these companies are going to be cutting jobs. Look, Walmart today just announced they're going to have to shut down a bunch of stores. And the reason that Walmart wants to shut down stores is because they need to lower their labor costs because they were just dumb enough to raise everybody's wages in order to placate the Obama administration, who said that their wages weren't high enough. So now they're going to give out pink slips.
And of course, part of the employment impediment in terms of getting more people jobs, in terms of the labor cost, is Obamacare. Yeah. And they use that. They spin these unemployment numbers by playing games as to the definition of who's unemployed, and then counting part-time jobs with this, and people, dumbing this down to 30 hours a week as a full-time job, so that a lot of people at the bottom end of the service sector have to get 2 jobs to make ends meet.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just absolutely incredible what they're doing. And if you look at what's going on in terms of not only exporting jobs, but importing workers, you see that all the job growth since 2008 has pretty much come to immigrants coming in. 17% of the labor force now is immigrant labor force.
Yeah, so, and it's the ultimate in irony in that President Obama passes a law that destroys full-time jobs because in order to get out from under Obamacare, employers have to limit the number of full-time jobs that they have. And so now people lose their full-time jobs, but now those full-time workers are replaced by part-time workers. So now somebody used to have one really good job, and now they have 2 crappy jobs, where both those jobs still pay less than the one job he used to have. But now Obama gets credit for the extra job. Yeah. Because all they do in the jobs numbers is count the numbers. So 2 lousy jobs is better than 1 good job as far as Obama's concerned, but not as far as the guy who has to work these 2 lousy jobs for low pay. So he gets to destroy jobs and claim credit for creating jobs at the same time.
That's kind of like Common Core economics, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's what we got. And of course, in terms of what the banks did in terms of being bailed out, we just see Goldman Sachs being assessed a $5 billion fine. Here we are 7 years after the fact. They're still handing out some fines. I guess we're supposed to feel better that they're going to give us a little bit of mercy and not charge taxes to the people whose houses they've repossessed and all of this. Yeah.
Instead of fining them now, we should have just let them go bankrupt back then.
Yeah,
instead we bailed them out, and now we're asking for some of the bailout money back. But you know what? All these big banks, and I don't know if anybody's looking at the brokerage stocks. Goldman Sachs today is at a 52-week low. The stock's dropped, 25, 30% from its high, and it's going to keep falling. And all the big banks are in trouble right here.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, you can get 6 months free at prisonplanet.tv, but only for 1 more week. Next Monday, the special that only comes around once a year ends. In fact, we've never offered 6 months free before, but I really want to get more people to join and to be able to watch the nightly news, to see the live reports we do, the special reports, all my films, ebooks, and so much more. One person can share their membership with 20 people, and you are funding the absolute very leading edge, the vanguard of the resistance to the globalist operation on every front. We have to have our own platform that is harder for them to censor, harder for the system to shut down. prisonplanet.tv. We put out the daily radio show free with the video and audio feeds at infowars.com/show. But it is the members that get the nightly news exclusively and first, and the commercial-free video podcasts and audio podcasts that are paying it forward and financing and helping so many other people see the truth when we put the videos on Facebook, YouTube, and it's prisonplanet.tv that finances so much of the cameras, the equipment, the crew, the reporters. You are becoming a prisonplanet.tv member. You get exclusive HD, higher quality, get it first, and then you can download it, share it with friends and family, share your passcode with them, your username. It's a win-win, and then you're helping finance to put it out for free to everybody. prisonplanet.tv. Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.